Yeah.
It's moonlighting.
Well, I'm not gonna,
Yeah, what's at Heritage?
A big private event that was booked like almost a year in advance. So we couldn't,
Like a Christmas.
No, that's good.
yeah,
something that we're getting paid for.
something.
That's good.
You're making money.
This room's fine. No, this room, I forgot how big it is.
Hello, everyone online. We're just waiting till 6 o'clock to begin.
We used to do plays out of here.
Out of this room?
Yes. The celebration players. did. We had a little stage right up here, seats back here. And the first 2 or 3 years had some cheap lighting.
We still have cheap lighting.
It was all, there's no musicals.
This is economic.
Economical, yeah, thanks.
It was cheap.
Cost effective.
And then we managed to get Randy Johnson, our state representative, to get the state to give money to Osceola County because they were no longer building theaters at the schools. So Randy Johnson got the state to give money to Osceola County to build the theater at the high school with the understanding that it would be available to the community at a reduced cost.
That the high school theater?
Yeah, that flew out the window. They lost the agreement. It's a neat record of it.
So, but the community can still rent it.
Only at ridiculous rates that no community theater could ever afford.
It's nice theater.
It's great thing. All right, 6 o'clock. I call this little workshop that we have every month to order. And look for somebody to
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
do that thing. Second,
Second.
anybody want to change anything up? All in favor of adopting it?
Aye.
Opposed? We start the festivities with an action item, an actual meeting item.
I move to approve the Lakeside and Spring Park bathroom revamp by Hazel Darbo, a design build corp in the amount of $300,000 from CROA Reserve and CROA Capital Funds.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to discuss, I hate to do this because I want to move forward with this project, but I do think this needs to be tabled because the scope of work conflicts with reality, unfortunately. The scope of work that's provided specifically says, if you read on page 17, it says that 17 of the board packet, it says that the scope of work will be finalized once the budget is finalized, and then they'll provide exactly what they're going to do. So I think we're past that, and the scope of work needs to be, at this point, exactly what they're going to do.
Is there an additional scope of work, like, because it looks like the one that was included in the contract was the one that was given to us for the bid. And I didn't know if like there's an additional, because there was some like areas that seemed kind of vague still in what was in with the contract.
So this was the updated scope after the price reduction that was presented.
Yeah, so the scope of work hasn't changed at all. We modified the price. So, it's an entire revamp of the bathrooms. I mean, there's nothing that's not in this, that we're not including. We're not reusing anything.
Okay.
All agreed on that.
I think that's where it was like a little bit vague in the scope, because it wasn't necessarily spelled out. So we were kind of nervous that.
What is it that,
Okay.
just so I understand, that you're saying?
So
I can read it. It says the proposal is subject, the scope of work. This
is the scope of
proposal-
work in our agenda package, correct?
Correct. Page
Okay.
17, digital page 17 of our agenda package. And the scope of work, this is
Oh,
the
I see
scope
what
of
you're
work.
saying, okay.
The scope of work from Hatzel Darbo and what we're saying in the contract is what we accept as the scope of work. And that document says this proposal is subject to modification as budget and design are fluid until budget and scope are approved. Once the budget is approved, we will provide a detailed design that will include the types and finishes of the faucets, mirrors, hardware, paint colors, granite, blah, blah, blah. So we can't.
Don't we have that in our packet though, Jared?
We should.
I'm looking at all of that.
I supplied all, the things that, when we say are fluid are, once the architect actually gives us a full drawn plan and we're not going off the sketches. Our sketches are put on the approved set to the building department. We've got in there all of the tiles, we have the toilets, we have, all the specs out. I think if anything changes or modifies, typically what we do is, I will turn around and say, okay, here is our final paint package, our final colors here. This is what we suggest, which will be done usually, as the process goes. We
Yeah.
see the colors of the tiles and stuff like that.
If we,
My question, though, specifically with the scope that was included, there were some questions that I had. That's why I'd asked.
Here to answer them, and I will
Okay.
gladly at any time put anything in writing you want.
Yeah,
on
that's
it.
what-
It's, yeah,
Okay,
no problem.
I think.
And I think your attorney is actually writing the AIA contract on it, correct?
Is Charlie ready?
Yeah, Charlie,
this is the AI,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you're using the AIA. So,
Okay, so in what was included in the board packet, it didn't necessarily say the removal of the current floor. Will that be included in the bid price, the removal?
yeah.
Removal?
we're not allowed to leave products existing. You cannot overlay products. You can at a residential house, but you can't commercially. We can't, we have ADA codes that, we laid over the top of something. For the simple fact is, there's no warranty that I'm never gonna give anybody for laying the product over something else. So no, there is, when you go into that, once we do our demolition, the only thing you're gonna see is bare block walls and bare concrete. Everything is,
Another was the outdoor lighting. Will those be LED lights in the exterior?
the exterior LED lights.
Is that in
Yeah,
the scope of work?
We're not,
No.
we're not outside. I don't.
I think they're only doing the inside.
Yeah, we're only doing inside.
How by the showers?
And like exterior shops too.
Yeah, we're doing exterior showers, the tile of the showers. Yeah, we're not doing any lighting. That was never.
Yeah, I didn't see lighting anywhere in the packet.
Okay, for electrical, it says repairs. Will things be replaced such as the outlets, light switches, the occupancy
Everything
sensors,
inside
cover
is
plates?
replaced.
and
Yes,
keep it in-
everything inside has to be replaced. It won't pass code. It
Okay,
won't.
so those will be
Yes.
replaced. And then,
And the heights and stuff, are gonna be adjusted ever so slightly because ADA a
Okay,
little bit different than today than it was when this was originally built. So things will modify a little bit. But yes, everything, like your receptacles today, have to be tamper proof. Back in the day when they did this, it's not tamper proof, but we have to do things. We have, the minimum standards in commercial.
and then, I don't know if it says it in the, materials, what is the countertop material?
it's,
The countertop, okay, so, there's 3 different types. We don't suggest going with a granite per se. Granite's like what they have in there and it's just the bottom of the barrel, okay? We prefer a quartzite, okay, which is the best,
Mhm.
okay? Now, we'll give you samples of quartz and quartzite, okay? And the reason why we give samples of the quartz and quartzite is because I can show you a $2,000 slab of quartzite and I can show you a $10,000 slab of quartzite. In quartz, synthetic quartz, which most everybody goes with, you're limited to your colors, but it's the best for maintenance. So we always give the maintenance part, let everybody decide maintenance wise what we would do compared to aesthetic, what looks the best, because quartzite looks the best.
And that's already factored
I've
into
got
that
all that
budget.
figured in my budget.
Mhm.
I give you this. So when I do the last things I do, which will be, have a meeting, have people come through, see everything before we put the paints on the walls. Here's what, the sticks and bricks look like. We have the tiles. Now, let me show you, if I show you a paint chip, And I've seen a section on that wall, you're gonna look at two totally different paint colors. And no one likes that paint chip. So I've learned, you put it on the wall, people go through, have your time to go through and look at it, see it. And then, because that's the last thing we do is that. And now, don't get me wrong, we'll give you the courts and courtside, we'll give you, exactly what, what we suggest. But
And
we
then,
keep it in, don't get me wrong, I'm gonna give you samples that our designers suggest, not 20 different things.
and then I think, I don't know, Lauren, do we have like a time on this project?
It was in your packet in the cover sheet, and it was confirmed with, Ron and Kim.
Yeah, so our part on the actual construction, not a problem. We do this every single day. That construction is not a problem. The permitting, that's outside mine. I mean, I've waited 4 weeks right now on a project today. I had to call up because we're changing out a hot water heater. It's been 4 weeks of permitting for a hot water heater.
Are you the one that follows up on permit? Will you be the one following up on the?
I have a permitting company that just pulls permits for a lit. That's all they do. So that's their specialty. That's their specialty is pulling permits.
So you
So-
feel the numbers,
Pardon me?
Go ahead, Jared.
I think we lost Jared.
He froze.
sorry, I'm back.
They're back.
Go ahead, Jared.
So you feel the numbers that are the granite, all these things are within the 300,000.
Yes. Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I wouldn't put it in writing if I chose something different. We've only got, like I said, a $1,000 slab or a $2,000 slab. We're in budget. From what we're gonna pick out.
Charles?
Wait, okay, I need a little more clarity on that though. A $2,000 slab and a $10,000 slab, we're still within the 300,000?
He said 1,000 or 2.
1,000 or
Oh,
2,
okay.
which is twice the difference. And
Sure.
but it's $1,000 slab. And remember, I get 2 sinks out of each slab. It's not like it's $1,000 for one slab.
Sure.
And we've already seen this with the tile options for the shower and we presented them to Art. He sent us some options. We went through on our team to looking at the design guidelines and what were there and made a selection. And we did see a range. There were a slight range in the pricing on that.
Okay, Charles, you had a question?
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, sorry, I'm turning out these new headphones. So if I'm interpreting this correctly on the scope of work, so our contract says it's a 2-page scope of work, but there are all the finishes, the hydrologic, and kind of everything that's attached to it. Are we not attaching those as part of the scope of work? It sounds like those are going to be kind of within the menu effectively that's going to feed into that 300,000. I'm just trying to understand. So I just need 2 pages.
We can attach those to the scope of work. That's an
Yeah.
easy modification.
I mean, that is part of the scope of work. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
I mean, that's something. So how is that? So this is all defined. Like I'm looking at the table of contents, vendor part, American Standard, Madera. So that's all stuff that you've identified as part of within that $300,000. Is that accurate? Like I'm seeing like the specs on the
Right,
toilet.
it's products, yes, it's products I've used in the past that are, I give them to everybody also with, to look them up and see that they are not the bottom of the barrel by any means. They are very, high quality products. I've used in the past, I like them, they're maintenance friendly. So that's the reason why we choose those specific, brands.
So I think that's I guess one of my concerns is obviously how the contract says it's 2 pages. I think all of these are the product specs are part of the scope of work, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're part of the scope. Yeah.
I'm saying what we need explicitly in the
Yeah, that can be changed. That's easy.
Any other questions?
Did you guys decide if you were going to do the performance bond or liquidated damages with the contract?
Yeah, I don't, performance bond, no liquidated damages. I don't do liquidated damages. Liquidated damages would be in case we don't finish
Right.
the bathrooms with it. And this is the reason why, okay?
It's in the contract. though.
Yeah, but it's not in my contract.
It's in this contract.
Yeah, well, it might be in the one you're writing,
Okay,
but it's,
so
when they put liquidated damages, you can put not applicable. And I make it not applicable because, and we can do it, if you want to do it, this is what I tell all my clients, okay, you want to do liquidated damages and it's not done at, let's say, 90 days, and you want to do $100 penalty for that. If I get it done before 90 days, I would like $100 bonus. Fair is fair.
should we discuss what,
We're only
What-
talking about bathrooms. We're not talking about,
You're taking deviation to our contract. Is that how I'm interpreting that?
yeah, I don't do liquidated damages in the fact that, now, it's different if you do liquidated damages, if it's a large project that, you know, you might have rentals coming in, you might have, you know, something rented that, you know, that someone is gonna charge you. You don't charge liquidated damages on what, an 8-week project. Because-
That's fine that's fine if you don't do liquidated damages. We also offer a performance bond. Those are the two options here.
Okay.
On anything over $250,000, it's either a performance bond or liquidated damages.
All right, let me, What type of liquidated damages are you talking about? And at what time period? Are you talking 3 months? Are you talking? And this is the reason for it, because when you say,
Yeah,
when we get into liquidated damages, it costs me money, because what I'm gonna do is if we order something and said, you know, this is how the big boys play, is that if something comes in and says, oh, it's a rain day, well, I call up, I need an extra day. If it turns around, materials don't get to my site, when I say it's supposed to be here in 2 weeks, they say 4 weeks, I call up and say, oh, I need another 2 weeks. So that's the liquidated damages that, you know, I have to track and I have to call and I have to extend the time out. So if you say, oh, we'll do $100 a day liquidated damages on a 3 months construction contract. Let's see, that's 12 weeks. What's my schedule on here?
April.
On my construction,
So the drop dead date that was proposed was April 4, 2025.
okay, but how long does that give me into?
Demo and reno is 10 weeks, 4 weeks plus 2 holiday weeks for permitting, an additional week for finalization of design. Contract signed December 6th.
Okay, so if I take that period of time from the day that I get the permit and we add all that time up right there, I'll do liquidated damages on that. But in other words, I know that schedule is 100% realistic, no problems whatsoever.
You're referencing from this January 27th point. This
Yeah,
section of the.
But remember, I can't control permitting. I mean, you know,
No, we understand.
we've actually,
Expectation.
I know, we've already jumped on it as, and I've already had my architect go out here. I already paid to have these things drawn up so I can try to meet the schedule, you know? And I
Yeah,
have no money from you yet whatsoever or a contract that I'm still, you know,
where we're coming from is if we have 10 weeks for you to get the job done, you're gonna get it done in 10 weeks. That's what we're looking for.
yeah, if I have that whole schedule.
So did we issue,
That is-
Lauren,
Problem.
when we sent this to the market, was that all part of the RFP, our
Yes.
boilerplate contract? So this was
Yes.
not identified in the proposal response, if I'm hearing this. We're just talking about this now. What are
So,
our-
yeah, I mean, the contract is included in the RFP, just so everybody's coming into it knowing what the contract.
So this contract that I'm looking at right
Yeah,
here was
with
included
the
in the
surety
RFP that
bond,
has the,
liquidated.
clause 11 breach agreement, surety bond or liquidated damages was
Yeah.
in the RFP package.
Ron, what I think I hear you saying though, is the liquidated damages at 10 weeks though, you're comfortable with.
I'm comfortable with my construction time.
Construction time.
That's what I want to clarify, my construction time.
So can we clarify the agreement to specs, to stipulate construction time
10-week
after,
construction time
after
from-
permitting?
From,
Yeah.
yes.
The permit, 10 weeks.
We can do that.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fair.
Anything else? How about, Gary or Jim, did you have anything about this? Do you want to comment? Okay.
I guess one last question from the original presentation brought us
Yes.
higher to them getting to 300. Was there any substantial changes overall in design scope or anything?
Design wise, we modified a few of the walls, actually a couple of inches here and there, but that was it. No, we left everything like it was.
Well, I think for 4 bathrooms, this is a very good bid.
Yep.
I really think this is a very good bid, bringing them up to,
From a commercial contract.
yes, I think this is up to the standards that we want as a community. So, anyone have anything else? Call the question. All those in favor of approving this contract with the changes as we discussed to the surety bond, our liquidated damages, I should say, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're done.
Being here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any questions you have during this, as long as we go through more, we go to the right channels, get to there, me. But I do like all channels to go through that part there.
Oh, absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
same with, with homeowners and so forth and so on, they come to me and
We just
I
tell
turn
everyone
around
to
and say, oh, here we go.
Actually, we tell everyone to call Jacob.
Call Jacob now, yeah, so yeah.
I can do Jacobs,
Yeah.
but, that's typically what we do. We
Yeah,
don't.
we're not gonna
My
bug.
guys
No,
don't,
yeah, that's how.
Yeah.
We don't bug our contract.
but you'll believe, I mean,
Yeah, Jacob.
You're,
homeowners don't, oh, my word, so we do always say contact, if you have questions.
Jacob can give you some cards you can.
I think you have these cards that you can give to people to.
Yes.
Done.
Jason's gonna get hammered.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Is
Thank
Jacob
you.
gonna be leading this or you?
He and Kristen will be,
This project?
Yeah.
Jacob and Christian?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Once that construction project starts, it'll be really handed to Christian. But yes.
Okay.
in all the shuffle, I lost my agenda.
Grain Manor's contract.
All right, first, before we do that, I noticed that Jim and Gary wanted to comment on something. I don't know what, but go ahead, Gary.
My
You're first.
comments are on the metrics and draft metrics,
Okay, so you want to comment when we get to that,
if you'll let me, yes.
Jim?
I just had a general comment about the capital contribution, lack of transparency from the lawyers. Why they didn't particularly cite the law that changed, or also say why the ballots that to be counted now were to be counted, what change.
I think we're working on a document that addresses those, right, Eric?
Yeah, we have a FAQ sheet that we're working on. We're trying to figure out if we're gonna have it. It'll be something that I'll probably ask about tonight at some point. See what we want to do, if that can be reviewed by a different outside counsel, the one that we have. Trying to answer some of those questions and get to it. But we've had the questions come in from a lot of members of the community, so we're gonna try to.
Answer all of it
To.
in a written document.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? We'll get to you in a minute. Moving on to the agenda itself, we're going with the Grand Manor's contract performance metrics, which we got some comments back from Stacy. And
Stacy's online as well.
Stacy's online, so would we like to review that with Stacy?
Sounds good.
All right.
Stacy, just so you know, I'm on the main screen. We only have one screen in this room tonight, and it's going to be what I'm presenting on the metrics. I have your visual just on my desktop.
Okay, excellent. Well, I got dolled up for nothing then, but it's okay. It's okay. It's worth it. Thank you all, of course. And first, I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving with your family and got to enjoy some great food, and appreciate the time and the conversation tonight around this. So yes, the team and I got together, Lauren, Metrius, Corbin, and I ran through the metrics and then provided the board with highlighted in yellow. Thank you, Katie. The additions or edits, if you will, that we had to the document that was sent to us from the board, in a few days previous to that. So, if we want to go item by item, however the board wants to proceed, ready or happy to do that.
I think it's mainly to me just the points of clarification that were made. I mean, I think.
Yeah, they seem truly to me to be minor just adjustments to the schedule from a logistical standpoint. Is that what I'm getting, Stacy?
Yes, Don, thank you. Yes, absolutely. I'll say from a general overall perspective, the team feels very comfortable with all of the metrics themselves. It was just dialing them in, making them a bit crisper so that there would be an avoidance of, question, if you will, on the items. And then in terms of it, another overall thing that we wanted to address is the period of time that we're going to be reviewing the items. So there would be consistency. In other words, we wouldn't do one metric monthly or every other month as an example, but look at them on a rolling 3-month basis. That was our at least recommendation or point of view.
In order to give staff the time necessary to get these things together in a consistent basis, right?
Correct.
And a sample size.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think the thing to me that stood out about this is I didn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no actual material change to the things that we're looking to evaluate. It's
That's
just
correct.
the time period. So
Yep.
there was no question on that.
100%, Eric.
Any other questions for Stacy?
I have one other note, Stacy, if that's okay. We also just wanted, it's not specifically labeled here, but clarification on what point in time to point in time you want in each evaluation section to go, because some of them say just a month and some of them say board meeting to board meeting. So we would say.
To me, I mean, and this is just me, but to me, it seems if we're gonna do it on a quarterly basis, which I think makes a lot more sense than trying to do monthlies, because it would drive us, I think it would drive the whole world crazy, the staff and the board, that we should go January, February, March, report for April, May, June, report for July, et cetera, just like the normal calendar quarters of the year.
That's what I was gonna bring up is, I know her current reporting she does, Jacob too, is from board meeting to board meeting. I don't know why we do that.
I don't need.
So I think we do get back to a calendar month of, say, for the December board meeting, that's November's month end data. And not that-
I also agree with that. You're talking about in addition to the metrics, just for
How we
everything.
handle this, but
Yeah.
then starting next year,
Yeah.
then the expectation should change of.
I'm in agreement with you. I like the fact that you get a November.
The financials, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Exactly.
Do you want this to begin starting with your December board meeting? So you'll have a
No,
short,
No, I think January.
Finish out the year.
Finish out the year.
okay.
January would be the first one reporting on December, so I guess January you're kind of off the hook.
And then I would suggest that to keep a standard that, again, this goes January to March,
Mhm.
April. to June.
Yep.
Now, the
Do-
question would be, are you looking at solely 3 months, so there's only 4 reviews
Yeah,
for a year?
that's what
Or is it a collection of a rolling 3 months of, the first 2 months, there's no real metric review except for numbers? March is the first one that we would get, and then it would be February through April, March through May, and it goes every single month.
To my mind, that's very fair because they're just getting started with this and it gives them a month to get the systems in place to begin the reporting in January.
But I was saying,
Let's be
sounds like you're
careful with
talking more
that.
about a quarterly review versus a 3-month rolling review.
Yeah, that's what
Let's
I'm
be-
saying. So it's supposed to 3 month rolling to do quarterly. That's just my suggestion. Yes, who was speaking? Someone.
I was saying, Jared was saying, there's a lot of conversation about they're just getting rolling with this. This is a 3-year, these expectations have been in the works for 3 years. So none of this is, I mean,
Well, I'm not saying it's new. I'm just saying that we're codifying this particular document right now, this one that we sent to Stacy.
but so why do we need to wait however much to start it?
We're 3 weeks into, we're a week into December already. And it's a clean starting point. That's the only reason I'm suggesting that. It's the clean, crisp starting point.
Of January.
Jared, what we do.
That's what I think.
Okay.
We also haven't talked about how we're going
The
to,
months would
how
start
we're going to
January,
audit
not
these.
necessarily now.
how are we going, sorry, how are we going to, and maybe this is where Gary has some commentary, who is going to be auditing this? And I mean, is this a board level exercise? Because I have some fears
Yes.
about that.
Yes,
Yeah,
Are we confident in that?
I think we are.
yeah, I think.
I'm not.
No, I think though, as a board, we are, not as individuals necessarily.
Yeah, I see the buck has to stop somewhere, and I think it stops with the board. And so I think where we get the metrics back, then we have to hash out, and if we disagree with how they are, that's what we have to hash out at a meeting.
That's right. If we disagree, that's what we use a workshop for.
Yeah.
To say, okay, well, show us what, you know, we get that, we get the report at the workshop. We get the metrics, show us why this number that we doubt is correct.
Yeah, and
I'll post this out there, and it's piggybacking off of what Gary and the management task force put together, is almost have a separate management committee that reviews this, or maintenance, I think was the word that you guys used, where maybe that's a collection of, say, 3 to 5 people on existing committees that volunteer over and beyond what their current role is to assist whatever board is there, to ensure that they might find something that we don't, or we might find something that they might want to dig in a little deeper. So having that community part of it, it's not just the board, but there are volunteers also looking into what's being reported and presented. And if something's off, then they can assist as well.
I think maybe starting off, we should try and keep it at the board level.
Yeah.
And that way it's not overcomplicating it.
Yeah. And the fact is, we're diluting the authority that we were given by the residents, by the homeowners when we were elected. Like when we pass a lot of stuff off, but I think these metrics are of a higher degree of import. At least right now, given all the stuff we've gone through, that the board needs to be the responsible party for this. And I think to Katie's point, let's see how it works.
yeah, and I think.
And if we need to change that, we can.
Well, and the metrics aren't going to be secret. So I
No.
think to me, what we would do is, like, for example, if I continue on as ARC liaison and now common board council, I would share these metrics with both of them. And then they could come back and they say, yeah, no, we don't agree with this whatsoever. And then it's less, to me, Don, it's less about authority and more about responsibility.
That's what I'm thinking. It's not authority, it's diluting the responsibility and diluting what we were, the mandate we were given by homeowners.
Yeah, so I would then take that, and if ARC comes back and says, I disagree with this, then it's my responsibility to bring that up to the board.
Since all the metrics will be published monthly and public, there's the opportunity for anyone to chime in or email the board if there is something that's there.
Just like Gary's gonna do. You have a comment on metrics?
I would like to make a lengthy comment.
How lengthy? You got a 3-minute comment. We're not doing a whole thing of, if you can do it in 3 minutes, that would be great.
I'm not doing it. Will you give me a 30-second warning?
Yes.
I can.
Gary Hubbard, 1471 Resolute Street. I want to provide comments on the board's draft grading metrics that was published in the board packet. My comments are based on 17 years as a system analyst, creating and applying metrics for the DoD systems. Working with contract lawyers at DoD, my inputs were part of domestic and international documents signed by the Secretary of Defense. I have 25 specific comments, but I'm not going to be good to.
Pick the big ones.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're taking away time.
I'm gonna give you back 10 seconds.
Good. Now, Stacy, I'm serious. Stacy may be comfortable with these, but I am very specific, and I think the lawyers will appreciate much more clarification in what I've read. In general, part of these metrics are ill-defined and inconsistent or contradictory. You may think my comments are picky, but this lack of specificity will be legally contested by both parties in a contract. The board may spend more time trying to determine the accuracy of the metrics data and debating the compensation of the management company than performing the actual work of the community association. So to start off with, metric reporting or grading periods are not consistent, as you just discussed. They vary from 3-month rolling average to the first and last day of the month, or a generic monthly, according to the board meeting date, or it's just not generally defined. See, the board packets now have reporting periods, and I look back in 24 this year, varied from 20 to 24 work days and everywhere in between. They have to be consistent. This inconsistency is going to mess up your metric results and may inadvertently result in failing to meet the scoring criteria. Or specifically, I'd like you to follow along on the metric table. Regarding the metric for work orders completed, the metric formula is incorrect. The numerator of total number of completed work orders is correct, but the denominator of total open work orders is incorrect. Total open work orders would only be the remaining work orders that were not completed, in other words, still open. This would be a subset of all work orders in a given reporting period.
30 seconds.
The denominator should be total number of all work orders open and completed within the reporting period. I only got through one. I've got 25.
Just to jump in here for a minute. If you have your 25, are you comfortable sending them to the board and Stacy?
Yes, I want to do that.
So
Because I
do
want
that,
you
do that
to.
for the 24, so we can
update
look at it.
this.
And then we'll give you one more minute to just kind of summarize, because
Right.
you can't go through all that, but if there's any other points you'd like to make that we hear tonight.
Right. Many of the formulas are not authentic and carefully. There's a couple that are missing the 100, which would be given a percent. They're just blank, so that it's not a percent calculation. The definitions are conflicting on a couple of others between the columns for reason, scoring, and calculations. There's different definitions. In one category, it says both and has to be done, and in the next column, it says or, meaning either one. And in the next column, it says and or. So it's confusing as to what needs to be done for that particular metric. It's full of problems like this, and I highly recommend Stacy solve these with my input so that you will have a correct accounting of this and you won't argue about it. So our association team, a legal team, which represents about 200 HOAs, with none of them containing performance metrics, does not have the experience in detailing and scoring performance metrics. I offer these recommendations that I'll send you in my experience to clarify these metrics to avoid legal hassles so that you can concentrate on maintaining and improving celebration.
Thank you, Gary, and send those to us. We will go through those. This is something we have to complete this month.
Yeah, John, say, I still think it's a work in progress, that what was produced tonight isn't the final version of what it's gonna be, so.
Yeah, we're not in a,
As we're closer
action
to
item.
now, Stacy.
Yeah, this is not an action item. This is merely a discussion item. No action is going to be taken until the meeting.
Mike Jackson would like to comment.
Michael?
I'll just do it from here.
Okay.
Quick. This is a big list of metrics and it's all about things. And you need to get it right, as Gary said, but it's got to be very, very disciplined. But I think they're missing one metric. You probably don't want to hear that because you got a nice list already, a couple of pages or 3 pages. But we've talked about it before. Our employee retention is terrible. Absolutely terrible. And you can put all the effort you want into all these things until you get employee retention solved. That underlying foundation, you won't accomplish a thing in the organization. You might as well just throw this away. But I think the Jacobs numbers that we heard, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have 5 or 6 employees that have been here for more than a year. The entire staff. That is just, you can't run an organization. People aren't experienced, they aren't getting developed. You've got to be the employer of choice, and we got to figure out what we're going to do to become the employer of choice and to hold these people. I mean, you've got turnover rates that are running like a retail operation, which is the most horrendous turnover in any business or operation in the world. So you've got to have something on here for retention, employee development, and training. It's just, it has to be there. And there's got to be a standard set, and there's got to be active actions to get leverage out of our employees make sure we get all these things done. So I think they're really remiss if we don't have wonderful employee retention.
Thank you very much. All right, any other discussion of this? What else do you guys have?
Actually, I'll just sum on this. So we are comfortable going with the calendar approach,
I am,
calendar month.
I am.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And then what would be the expectation on delivery of those numbers? Is it the 10th business day of the following month? What kind of parameters will we put around it? As far as when the numbers will be produced and provided to the board? Because I don't think it should be until the board meeting. It should be a week after the month end, I would think.
Want to put it on the workshop?
I think we,
So it's the second Wednesday of every month.
But then that number would be out the first, which sometimes is the first day of the month.
So you want to do, well, I guess that's tough because November, December, we're doing the workshop the first week, so that's not gonna help you guys.
well, then in those cases, we'll get to the second.
I'm just
Like,
saying,
make
do
it
you
the
want to
second
think, the 7th calendar day, the 10th business day, something that you can just say. the
I'd like to
numbers
have
would
the
be expected.
workshop unless the workshop falls on the first Monday. Or the first Wednesday,
So the Monday before the workshop.
or
It
yeah,
would be in the workshop.
be at the workshop pack, so that we go back to Monday before the workshop.
So if it's in the workshop packet, that would also be at the same point in time where it's released to the community.
Correct, and then we'd have a full 2 weeks for any discussions with committees or with us looking at them and going, I don't like that. Lauren had something she wanted to add.
Well, I'll wait on that one,
Okay,
because I think the other concern that Eric's trying to raise is we would still be doing monthly reporting in the board packet for, like we do in the management report now. I think is that what you were
Yeah.
trying to drive at? So they're seeing numbers come in, it's just you're not doing this eval until the next quarter of the previous quarter.
oh, that's true, we would never hit those 2 first of the month, because it's 4 board meetings a year.
Correct.
Yeah,
Well, I guess that's the other conversation next is, I was expecting to see it every month after the 3rd month.
I'd rather see it every 3. I don't want to do this every month. I really
Yeah,
don't.
but seeing it every month gives us an idea of how it's trending, projecting. So I think there's
Really
opportunity.
gives us an idea how it's trending, just over a longer period.
Well, but that's where you can jump in and course correct and have some of those discussions and look at controls and what
I,
can we.
I think, one, I don't want it as a board member monthly, and I don't think management can handle it monthly.
Well, that's the other question, right? Then you're taking management out of.
Well, and that's because that's what Stacy's saying, is that they wanted they wanted it to be a longer time frame so that they had time to put those numbers together, but.
So my understanding is that
I
3-month
think that-
rolling average was more to have additional data points, not that there was any issue of timing of turning around a month.
Stacy?
So it's twofold. It's really what everybody is saying collectively, which is one, that we would have enough data points to present in a rolling 3-month period, and that it would be less administratively heavy for the management team. So it would accomplish both.
I think to me, it's a difference. We're still going to see feedback and metrics, even if they're not.
Over that entire period.
Well, in a board packet. And we'd still be able to, turn around and I could turn around and say, I think we have a problem with, work orders not being responded to. And we can still bring that up in that time period. It doesn't prevent us from providing that feedback to management. It's more of an accountability piece that we say, when do we engage with this performance part of the management agreement is in that rolling 3-month, metrics period. Because otherwise it's.
And the other point, that makes great sense, because you got a January management report. We can look at that and say, this is not looking good. That gives management some time to cure.
Right. Well, I guess that's a good question. Go ahead, Charles.
So we're saying, sorry. So we're saying the formal report, the quote unquote formal reporting is quarterly. Obviously, we're still going to get our weekly, monthly touch bases with kind of how things are going. That's fair. I just, and I don't expect that's going to be interrupted, but I agree with everything said. Like, we don't want management to have to spend, we want them to put the right amount of time in this, but obviously if it's going to take them out of the core competencies like covenants, ARC and whatnot, then we have to take a second look at it. I think we're all saying the same thing.
Jacob, Lauren, question for you. So we take into this account performance metrics, we give a thumbs up at the meeting, we're gonna do this, we move forward. What changes in the management report that we get today?
We would add in, so some of this stuff isn't in the management report and we would start adding it into the management report.
So let me ask the question a different way. What would be removed from the current metrics or numbers that we get on a monthly basis?
Nothing would be removed.
So
Right.
I don't have a problem with this. It's really, we're just holding them accountable on that.
That formal accountability score sheet.
Right.
But what we should also consider, I mean, with all due respect, Jacob and Lauren, the weekly reports you send us are like very bulleted, extremely tactical things like blue leaves at every park, did this. Perhaps maybe that's an opportunity at an upcoming workshop to look at maybe reimagining that reporting to more look at what we're talking about today. Those are all important, but I don't know if necessarily we need that minutia. And maybe I'm totally off on that, but maybe that's something we can consider.
Yeah, I mean, we're fine to modify the weekly report. It's been modified a few times since we've been doing it. I mean, it used to be a 10, 12-page document. Now it's
The main
A
goal is to
one-page
stay
email.
between 500 and 1,000 words. That's what I'm trying to do to respecting of the time and putting the majority of the statistics in the monthly report. Just so that way you are getting updates every week on what the full team is providing. If it's not useful to you, I mean, we can change it, but
I think the thing that's helpful to me is it's the grocery store moment, right? Someone comes to me and they're like, oh, hey, you're that Eric guy, you're on the board, I'm gonna complain about something. And 9 times out of 10, it's in that report that you gave me. I could turn around and say, yeah, we know the light bulb is broken there, but it's because the light bulb was special ordered from,
Like the fence at East Village.
exactly, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it's a really good report.
It's
very
one of those
helpful.
things that's helpful. I do like that it's that 500 to 1,000 word type, time limit. Because to be honest, if it's 10 pages long, I'm probably not going to read the whole thing, or I'm going to miss something in it if I try to. It's the highlights. I think the key thing to me here is that we're not losing anything out of the metrics that we're currently getting today out of, either a reporting perspective.
No, we're just gaining formal accountability,
Right.
which we're gonna look at.
And we're still going to refine.
We're gonna refine over the next week or so to have something that we can end this year with.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Even if that, and it can be a work in progress for the future, but we need something to end this year with to go forward with. So we have some sort of written, public, homeowner accessible accountability.
So we're all talking the same language. Instead of rolling 3-month rolling average, it's just gonna be a quarterly review.
I have one question.
Where January through March, April through June, et cetera, through June.
Kate,
I think, I'm just curious, like, how we would do the financial part of it if it was quarterly. Cause I think monthly, cause it's out of the management fee, right? That's billed monthly, so then if it's quarterly,
Yeah, the thing I was just gonna say about is, we were originally gonna do 1,000 each
Yeah.
month, so pretty much it's 3,000
3,000.
for each item quarter.
Yeah.
that's what I was.
And then to pull that a little further, what is the compensation process in the event that there are penalties that we need to recoup? Is it appropriate that we are going to net out a future payment to you by those penalties? So for instance, in March, if you failed something and we're deducting 3,000, when we get to that next month, it's comfortable that we're gonna short Grand Manor's 3,000 because we're recouping.
yeah, I mean, that's in the agreement.
Yeah.
Yep,
That's
that's
the way-
correct.
And the expectation will be, it'll be that following month.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
The following month, yes.
No, just making sure
Yeah.
details are
No,
out
that-
there.
I think
Yeah,
that's, I think you're definitely, I think we're all, it strikes me that we get consensus. All right.
So
let's
can I
move
make
on.
my one other?
You
comment?
may, she may make
Sorry.
one other comment.
Just-
Absolutely.
On the timeliness of getting this document done, I still have we still have CCS, Canoa, and CJC that need to approve the contract.
so
And
we
we're
have to do
waiting
it
for
fast.
this document to be finalized, so kind of times of the essence.
Okay,
That's fine.
so,
Has Canoa seen this?
They've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
and what's their
They have no,
opinion?
Okay.
it doesn't impact them. It's
It
not.
doesn't impact them at all, so they're not gonna care.
Yeah.
So really, it's gonna be us
John,
approving.
Yes, but I'm waiting for this document to be done so they can approve the contract in its entirety.
Okay,
I also want to bring to the board's attention, there was the second amendment that also accompanied the, we'll call it the pricing terms. So we have the pricing terms, the metrics, and the second amendment.
and we're going to look at all of that in the next meeting and approve it, right?
Fantastic.
Okay. Moving on in the discussion items, the RFP, we wanted to talk about whether we were going to put out an RFP for a community center on Lot D. Is that correct?
I think you wanted to start talking about potentially doing a design,
Yeah,
getting a design firm involved to start looking at that. RFP for a design firm.
an RFP for a design firm to design a community center to then, okay, okay. Anybody want, have anything?
Yeah, can I, so I'm a little bit confused with why we're immediately jumping to Lot D, because I went back to the MPAG report and I'm trying to just understand, that's a $9 to $18 million project. And we've got phase one and we've got phase two, we've got multi-purpose courts, we've got park improvements in that first phase. We've got a second phase with the multi-generational center and what have you. I understand the need to do some advanced planning, but there's a lot of red flags I'm seeing right now with jumping right into this. And there's also
I agree with you, Charles.
And
Okay.
that's basically what I was gonna say. I just don't know. Like when right now with MPAG working on phase one and we're working on 851, I just didn't know like what the capacity was to start an RFP. for
I don't
community.
think we should even discuss this. I think we should just say, no, not now.
Yeah,
Too early.
the problem I have, and I think hopefully we're all on the same page with this. The 851 is our priority. It really, really is. And I think all six of us are aligned around that. And when we do stuff like this, like I'm okay with splash pads. We can certainly look at that and see what that looks like. There is a lot of time that's going to go into all of this with the management, writing the RFP and dealing with vendors and all that. And that's the opportunity cost with both 851 and everything going on. So
Why don't we just
certainly
not
open-
do that? Why don't we just get rid of that?
We still have one thing for this discussion that I think should come out, which I'd like to propose, is that in January, we have a joint meeting with CCDD to start talking about celebration as a whole, civic order,
I think we're getting to
what
that.
we're doing with town hall and everything else, right? Because again, I had my opposition with our last meeting, but if we proceed with the repair, you've closed off a lot of avenues for celebration of what could happen that will not. So I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page as far as you have a fork in the road, and if you go down one, you cut off a lot of opportunity within our community.
Okay,
I think the piece for me where we need to figure out, the elephant in the room is we need to figure out what the community is comfortable and what we are comfortable with on pieces of the CDD. As Andrew has mentioned, we can't afford to do this.
not yet.
And I think that there's different pieces that we can try to figure out how to do, and we need to understand and kind of put to bed is there's pros and cons about trying to either partner with the CDD or work with them on a land use agreement or whatever we try to do. And I know that those are sticky conversations, but I think that we need to have them in January to kind of make a decision so that both boards can kind of decide what's our path forward.
CDD is getting a presentation from Dick's Height this month, which I think we should
Yeah,
what we should pay attention to, and then go from there.
Yeah.
In the new year. But I would like us to make sure that we do move 851 onto a fast track.
I think that's our next.
Yeah, and that's our next thing. Because
And by the way-
we sort of put I think we need the community center's not ready to be discussed. Charles.
Yeah, just as a comment, there was a comment made last meeting that the agreement with Dick's Height was terminated. That's actually inaccurate. The minutes, I went back just to validate that because that was different from what I heard. They paused it, pause/suspend. So that's not been terminated based on the minutes. So that was.
No, they paused it.
They paused and suspended it. It's not been terminated. So.
Do we know why?
They were waiting on us. We were on different tracks.
Yeah,
We were running at different speeds.
Yeah, yeah.
They were running a lot faster than we were. Because we have that 851 issue that had to be settled before we could really think about anything.
Opportunity.
Yeah. So let's move on to the Calic group addition scope on eight.
Hold on.
Oh, yes, Michael.
Doesn't need to get up for. I'll make it brief.
Okay.
The last board meeting, Charles alluded to it. I think the audience was very intrigued by what was going on in the discussion, and there was a lot of murmuring. You probably didn't know that or realize that. But the read from the audience, and my perspective was, there was discussion about build, do, rebuild, and if we rebuild, it's not going to be adequate. We still don't have an adequate building. And then the group jumped to, well, let's do the Lot D project. We'll build that civic center out there, and that'll take care of all that capacity that we need. And everybody in the audience was just aghast by it. So the fact that you're backing off of that, I think, is a good thing, and it's common sense. So
It was too fast, yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that. We have no capacity to do that, and no desire at this point. The thing I really want to say is, I think your diligence is, I don't think you've got diligence. I think you've picked a path and you're going down it. So I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. And I probably lean one way or another, but just from a process standpoint and a project standpoint, what you've done now is pick the path that is the cheapest and the fastest. That's your criteria for diligence. Now, you can say that's good.
I think that's a pretty strong, and my one thing, let me just, we are going to have disagreements among this board and within the community. And we've got members of MPAG who have come to us and said, fixing the building is the right way to go. So we are going to have disagreements on what is the prudent path, which is why we have to make that final call, and people will be upset.
Yes. The decision that's being made, there really isn't good facts to back it up at this particular point. It's too early in the process.
Again, your opinion.
I don't, so I qualify this as all my opinion.
Okay.
So let me get to that. So you've got a criteria of cheapest and fastest, but you're gonna live with a product that comes out the end. And if you do a repair and go in that direction, you're gonna get a certain product. If you go with a new construction, you're gonna have a certain product at the end. Certainly they're different. One's more expensive than the other. But I think you've got to go down and consider the product and look at those two things and the opportunity to maximize or optimize the 851 site and what could be done there, because that's in our central business district. And you aren't going to get another opportunity to do that. There's not another site. There's not going to be another building opportunity to do that. So I think you've got to go all the way down both paths to at least evaluate the building that could be if it was repaired and the building that would be there if it was new. And if you don't do that, I think you're going to be falling short on my opinion, on the diligence. And I would tell you, a lot of people in the community are going to feel that you're falling short, because first question you're going to get on a repair without any renovation, without any other diligence is, what happened to the idea of a new building? Because there is a very strong current in the community that we're either going to repair, renovation, or rebuild.
Okay. I don't usually do this, but there is always a strong group that claims they are the ones that represent the ultimate truth. And we have people on both sides of the issue. We formed an entire committee basically for that primary purpose of 851. So we're gonna move from there, but I really appreciate your comments. I truly do.
Okay,
I will say though, you do have those committees, but they seem to be severely one-sided and not looking at the entire picture.
You don't think they look?
I was
Okay,
in-
I'm not gonna, no,
I was in the impact meeting
Yeah.
that Jim knows at Island Village when they made the decision to do the renovations. And it was not a very disciplined process.
I'm not saying.
All right.
Let me clarify.
yeah,
It's not
Thank you,
it's not that the repair process is done poorly. They're doing a great job on it.
Mhm.
It's that the alternative of what a
It's not.
new building looks like, and that seems to just be washed away and not even thought.
it was, but see, this is the thing, it was thought, it wasn't washed away.
Done.
It was, and MPAG looked at it, and by the way, Khalid gave us a cost for it, an estimated cost for a rebuild versus a renovation. We got those numbers. And MPAG addressed the issues with that building. There is no more parking. You raised the issue of the school. That is, I went to the horse's mouth. The school district will not sell anyone that property, period. So we're gonna put the parking.
If you can produce that.
Don, can I make a quick comment? Can I make a quick comment? So,
All our school.
My understanding was that they were waiting on Disney to finally
Nope.
raise their right so that then CCDD can move forward.
Not,
Charles has a comment.
not true. Our school board member says that will not be sold to us. Yes,
Well,
Charles.
not sold us.
so
but-
Just celebration.
all right. I want to make my comment. So the one comment I do want to make, and you can extrapolate on this. I think we just went through this with the playground. So we had the option almost a year ago of repairing, and we made the decision to replace and build new. So I'm not saying necessarily that that's the correct path for 851, but sometimes it's a hard decision. Sometimes it's the right decision, and it's a good idea to gather the data so we can make a full educated decision. I understand we all have different opinions on it, but getting data, asking questions, and truly looking at a process that's going to be sitting with us probably for the next 20 to 30 years. It's not a
But
bad
Charles,
idea.
what I find fascinating is that we had a process. And now people are second guessing the process because they didn't like the result. Much like the fear that was going on over the ballot amendment, the budget amendment, the fee amendment, that turned out to be a moot point. We
Don,
promised
I get
when
it,
we
but-
ran, you and I both, I know you were telling people that we needed to solve the 851 problem sooner than later, because right now our staff is scattered to the wind. We have lost gigantic facilities that we were using for big events like the foundation's events. We have to move forward. Now we can analyze this. We can literally paralyze ourselves in analysis. Or we can try over the next month or two to move forward and make a decision
So
as a board,
I don't
whether
disagree
people
with
like it
anything
or
you're
not.
saying, but at the end of the day, I get it. And at the end of the day, you're spot on. But also at the end of the day, we're the ones that have accountability for homeowner values and driving up improvements and whatnot. And we're the ones authorizing these checks. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. At the end of the day, we may end up going in that direction. We may end up going with the impact direction, and we probably will. But to make a full educated decision, it's not a bad idea to just make sure we have all of our points together. That's all.
So-
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm willing to hear if somebody's got,
Can I clarify something about?
Jim, you get to speak. Come on up. Everybody gets,
I just want to clarify a few things.
yes,
One, master.
you were on master plan.
I am.
Yeah, you're still on master.
The meeting which he attended. Yes, we discussed it because Mark, obviously, who was at the last board meeting, is an architect and been with Khalid, a bunch of things. The thing that we wanted to move forward with was with Khalid to get a good estimate of getting that building fixed. So then the decision can truly be made, whether that's the route you want to go, especially if it's only going to be within a year.
And that's what our discussion item, I believe, is tonight.
To approve the.
To approve giving them the authorization, which we kind of did, but when we initially contracted with them, we had a broader scope and we narrowed that scope. And now we're talking about adding back into that scope a more detailed estimate of the reno versus a new build.
Correct.
The design we would, I think, do the design development phase and construction drawings. And then my question was if we had to include the construction admin in this motion, or if we could keep that out and just pay for design development and construction drawings.
Which we could.
We'd have to.
And you have a question by Mark Matura, or hand up.
Mark? Oh, hi, Mark.
Hello, I'll keep it brief. To Katie's point, I think you could leave the construction administration off, obviously, until you make a decision whether to go ahead and do the project or not. The whole point of finishing the drawings is so that you really do have a complete cost. It's ready to go. It's done. To all the other points of seeing what it looked like for a new building there, that is hiring a design firm to truly design it. It's not as easy as just gathering data to make a comparison. I'm not sure you can do that without actually designing a whatever that building might be.
Mark, you bring up a good point. It's kind of the question that I have. And I think as a board, the understanding to have what Calic is doing now with the design, with the final to do a renovation, we'll get that. We'll get the numbers, we'll get the drawings. Can Calic at the same point in time provide us a proposal for what it would be to design a whole damn new building at the same time?
Mark?
They could. I don't think it's fair to other architects out there in the world, but without another RP. The answer is yes, they could. You would still need to tell them what the program of that building is. I will say, as I think with the renovation, there is a lot of things that will be done that will make the building still multi-purpose and usable without needing to increase the size of it. Some of the things that we did talk about last time.
So I guess,
But let me, Mark, for clarification. Calic did, as part of the report we received, correct me if I'm incorrect, they did provide what they thought would be a new build cost based on their experience for the same size building, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they gave a range, and we can argue about where that range ought to fall, but it is definitely a more expensive prospect, as you can imagine that it would be. So it is a 30% more to double the cost or more to build a new building on that site.
Of the same size.
Of the same size, correct.
That's the part I'm trying to emphasize, is of the same size.
Yes,
If we're
if you're
going
trying to
larger and
increase
adding
it.
space, it's gonna be even more.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. And then I'm not sure what else we're going to gain in that footprint. As I tried to describe during that last board meeting, that lot is definitely not big enough to get the more sports-related activities of indoor ball courts or multi-purpose larger space. That site cannot fit that size of thing. It can fit maybe a smaller theater. It can fit some more meeting spaces, places to do classes, but that site is limited to the square footage that could be built on it to a degree. So what that exact number is, I haven't exactly worked it out, but you do run into a parking problem very quickly of increasing that footprint.
Mark, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, so you can tell me to show off.
On it.
This is
No,
an
I'm fine.
inappropriate question.
Yeah.
But if we were to say, we want to solicit bids for someone to do a design for this, to do a whole new design, even if they're going to design it to do the same thing, what's the time frame that was typically done in the industry? Is it like 2-3 months, or what? I guess I'm trying to understand if we could do some of this in parallel, if we decide that that's what we want to be able to see.
It would still take longer. One, you'd need to put out an RFP and have that done. There would be the same programming phase, and that's getting schematic drawings. The site still needs the same civil work done, some other things to it. There's a lot more drawing for what a new building would be. It's a 8 or 9 month process to get to good drawings for what, to get that fully developed to the same level, I would say. Where
Got
the renovation is definitely a shorter timeline. You can have
And-
CDs done in, as we talked about, 3 or 4 months from now, or you need to ask them that, but.
Right, and from an RFP perspective, Mark, that's like, I mean, it's not like it's a $10,000 project. We're
No,
talking.
it's not. It's hundreds of thousands. It
Right.
really is. To do construction documents, take it to the same degree. You could definitely do to a design development level to get an estimate at that point. That's about half the fee. But that's still, I don't know, a couple $100,000 or so. I don't know without spending 10 minutes to think about it in my own head.
Yeah, no, that,
Doing this all day.
all I
Yeah,
wanted
it's
to
not a
was, are we talking
$10,000
hundreds of
process.
thousands or like 10,000? So
hundreds.
yeah, exactly. Okay.
Okay.
So I think overall though, I'm fine going down the estimate route and completing that part of it. As far as approval, I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I would ask the members of the board, let's get that meeting with CCD in January. Let's talk to them, have a public meeting that how realistic is that land next door or not? And if it comes out of that meeting that there's no shot in hell, we're gonna be able to work with CCD for them to obtain it and to do a bigger civic building with, say, a 2-level parking garage on that lot that serves our community, then yeah, repair is the way to go. And I would agree that it doesn't make sense to build new, same footprint than the repair right now. Is there an opportunity? Maybe, but that doesn't seem like an option. You gotta do bigger. And can you do bigger on that lot? We're probably gonna be squeezed on. So if we can't do bigger and we can't grab additional land to do something else, then that's where I feel, not that we're back in the corner, but that repair is truly the only option. But as far as completing due diligence, as of today, I don't think we're there.
Yeah, I 1000% agree with that. If you could get the school property, that reopens this up completely. And for the record, having done a drawing of a footprint, a larger building that would accommodate absolutely everything would fit on the school lot, plus the parking without a parking garage even, surface lot. All of that fits on the land that would be available if that was available.
Yeah. So we just need to get a firm answer on that, understand that.
Yeah.
From a
I will
maintenance.
solicit a firm answer because I've heard from a member of the school board that will not happen.
Okay, I think that's fair. From a management perspective, did you need something else from us?
Nope, I'll get with Kulik, get a proposed contract together for your
I
board
mean,
meeting.
we're still marching forward.
We'll get an update.
We need to march forward no matter what direction, even if we need to take another direction.
I don't know if this is right. I had it at 143,250, not including the construction admin.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll pull the math and share it with the board and make sure that's what you're looking at.
Sounds
Yeah,
perfect.
that's fair.
Thank you, ma'am. Savannah Square fountain replacement.
It
Is
needs
this
to be replaced.
400,000?
No,
Oh, okay.
needs to
Needs to be
replaced.
replaced.
So this is the whole metal versus concrete?
Yeah, so
This
it's
is-
been, oh, go ahead.
So yeah, this is the main discussion on this is the fountain that currently exists on that spot is a metal fountain that has been tried to be repaired in the past.
Yeah.
It's at its end of its useful life, so we're looking at doing a replacement of that as well as the motor pump system, which sits inside the base. We're not looking at touching the actual vessel
Yeah.
itself. That's important to be noted as some community members, when we solicited feedback, recommended a larger fountain, but that would require a larger larger pool thing. So that's not something that's looking at being entertained. The main reason this is being brought up is because we're looking at doing a style change of the material. It's currently a metal. We're looking at switching this to a concrete fountain. The concrete fountain provides easier maintenance costs that can be handled in-house more than the metal can, and has a debatable longer lifespan to it. We did solicit feedback from the Savannah Square townhomes, asking with a couple photos of options that we were looking at. We still are getting some feedback back from that back. We just talked about something, I think, just today. But it is overwhelmingly more positive towards concrete, which we were happy to hear. The concrete does come in significantly cheaper than the metal fountain did.
And lower maintenance costs.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
to me, I guess the question is the only thing that I've heard people negative besides the make it bigger, which that's not on the table, is the whole freeze thaw cycle with a concrete fountain that people were concerned with. And to me, even if we have to reserve to replace the whole darn thing, it's still cheaper than one metal fountain. So even if the thing cracks in 2 years.
When was the last hard freeze?
I'm with you. I'm just raising.
I mean, we're not talking about just a little freeze. We're talking a hard freeze.
Let it be said, if it is even a thing, his statement does still fall track that
Yeah.
even if that happens and it does break 2 years down the road,
It's
we're
cheaper to
still-
replace.
Okay, so I think this makes sense. So this would be an action item on the
Yes.
next. Cool.
Yeah, we probably list it as a consent item.
Okay.
It's
You
fine.
know the saying, when Florida
It was
freezes
sent to
over.
ARC already too, right? Or am I making that up?
No, it will go to ARC before the board meeting.
Okay, all right. That makes sense.
I think, no, we didn't discuss.
Not
it.
this
I
one.
think we need to make that an action item.
We didn't know the direction, so we
Yeah.
didn't want to take it to ARC without a direction on it.
Okay, dog park rules.
So the dog park committee has recommended changing the weight limit from 35 to 30 for the small dog park, and they want to change the rules so they know small dogs are no longer allowed in the large dog park, just like large dogs are not allowed in the small dog park. So
Okay.
it will be an action item on your agenda.
That's
So-
as per the dog park.
For the committee.
Yes.
Or the committee,
That's
what
their
you'd like to do.
Anybody have any thoughts on that? Or agendize that?
Right now, it's advised that dog, small dogs can enter the large dog at their own risk. The committee doesn't like this as they have a lot of fear that their large dogs might injure the small dogs, even though it is, the liability is stated that it is on the small dog who's entering. That's kind of where the root of this situation comes from.
I don't know, small dogs are more likely to hurt the big dogs.
That makes sense.
All right, Parks and Rec contracts.
So the Recreation Committee has been working diligently on updating their scopes of work to kind of fall into line with the new groups and the new kind of fee structure that the board approved earlier this year that they worked on last year. So all of or a good majority of the contracts will be on your next agenda with the updated scopes of work.
Okay. Anybody have-
Existing contracts?
So their existing partner programs and their contract extensions are up on the 31st of December.
Got it.
And
So they're
we're
trying to-
using that opportunity to line everything up.
To
and
align.
Make sure everybody has an updated scope of work and is following in the right category.
And we just have to approve that.
Mhm.
Okay,
Is there a determination on the 20% of revenue versus a yearly rate? Is that determined by the company?
It depends on what
Partner
category, it depends on what category you fall into. So what group type they are determines their fee structure.
But I'm just saying, like, just take X Factor, the first one, right? 20% of revenue per month or 1,700. What's the 20% compared to the 1,700? Are they pretty close to each other, or is there a huge difference? And then
It
how does
depends
one
on,
determine which one you go?
it depends on the program, and I will have to ask Nikki that one before the contracts are.
Because I guess putting you in there, is it the greater of the two or lesser of the two, or they get to choose what they want to pay? What?
I
How's
believe
that?
it's the greater of the two. If they're, no, this is what it was, sorry. If their 20% doesn't meet that minimum threshold, then they have to pay that minimum threshold. Otherwise, it's the 20%. So
Oh,
X Factor is bringing in, if our 20% of X Factor would be $3,000, we're getting $3,000. But if their
So
20% was, yeah,
Okay.
I got a question from the audience, and this one I have to answer because the audience is my wife. So what if you have two dogs of two different weights?
To this rule,
Mhm.
you would have to have two adults at the dog park.
Oh, I bet she doesn't like that one. Okay, thank you. Did you get that answered in? Oh, she's responding.
Email the board.
Point of order, we've moved on to the next topic.
Yeah, 2025 Parks Enhancement and Replacement Schedule.
Yeah.
Oh, now she says I have to go along.
I'm going to present this for those on the phone, but there's an additional document Brian I worked on for this. So the reason this has come up was a few meetings ago, we had that big stack of projects. I want to let you guys know that hasn't kind of gone away and we haven't forgotten it, but we wanted to address how to approach those items. Looking at this from a fiduciary point, on our reserves, we have starting next year, just over $200,000 annually for park enhancements. That number does go up by 4%, so it can, in a few years after that, it'll be a bit bigger. This sheet that I'm going to now present, like I said I would, shows, just what we've already are looking at spending in Q4 this year alone is similar to that amount. So we wanted to be able to try to kind of stay a little more in line with what we have in the reserves for this line item.
What you're saying is this, basically what we're spending in fourth quarter is the total amount we have for 2025.
What we're spending in the fourth quarter would be similar to the increased amount that we're at for 2025. We had less this year, but we were spent much more.
There's still some for this year, for 2024.
It's all mulch.
That wasn't.
You mean as
That
far
was
as funds or projects to be done?
I think, but just what you said for the fourth quarter part.
So
The fourth quarter, these parks we have right here in fourth quarter, there's reserve money, 2024 reserve money.
correct, those are coming out of 2024. Yes, yes,
And then
Q4.
the others are coming out.
That was just listed on here. When we were writing that, these were active projects. So that's really where they're there. I'd recommend starting looking at that Q1 2025. So what we tried to do is break this up in a quarterly basis and considering our residents as well. A lot of the project enhancements we've been working on are in the main village right now, except for some of the very minor projects that we've just approved and completed around the surrounding villages. The concept with this proposal is it's working off of the estimates that were provided in our last workshop to you. But it's to try to stay closer to what we have in the reserve allotment per year. It's a bit higher on this one, but it's just where we are looking at based off this year as well. I'm trying to get these parks in order. Comfortably, if we look a few years down the road on this, we shouldn't even be needing to spend the $250,000 in this line. Once, it just depends on how we phase it all out. But the concept on here is doing smaller parks, the passive parks, 1 quarter, then switching to doing large scale projects for a quarter, and then switching back and forth. So we're touching base on enhancements throughout the community on an annual basis. So just a little look over at this. We have Q1 projects ranging from $1,800 to one that is a bit larger, $22,000. Q2 doing some active parks, the Founders and Amphitheater, and then Q3 back to passive parks, and Q4 has some other items on there of the larger active parks.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna say, is there anything keeping us from doing the first quarter, second quarter immediately?
In the what?
Looking out the first quarter and second quarter projects beginning of next year rather than waiting,
You mean escalating any of these items?
right? I mean.
Probably
if it's
manpower.
if the reserve, then
No, it's probably manpower.
They're all reserve items. Most of these are broken up because there was the request on how do we logistically cover the manpower and cover these projects on a timeline.
so it
Brian
really is the
provided back. A lot of these are a lot of the smaller ones are 1 week projects. Some of them can be, and that's why, they're kind of broken out into different phases. Some of them, it just depends on really what timeline the board is wanting. Some of these projects can be done in congruence with others, like we're seeing with the Long Meadow project and the Spring Park project currently taking place at the same time as a few very minor projects. So.
yeah, my question was, is there a capacity issue or can some of this be pushed forward?
Can probably
Brian,
push
we
some
can
of it
push
forward.
this forward if that was the request of the board and the community. Yes.
If things are needing work, I think we should fix it rather than wait. And if it's already reserved, then when we take it out, January of 2025 versus December of 2025, it's still coming out from the same bucket. So it's not that we want to push Brian so far that he can't do a good job and take his time, but.
Well, why don't we
Like,
just say,
come from
let's,
here,
let's,
but
let's,
Is there anything that?
let's start a schedule, and then if Brian can move ahead, anything ahead, he moves it ahead.
Yeah.
Does that work for you?
That's something.
That works for him. All right, let's put that on the agenda.
I have a question. So we're calling this park upgrades. This is really more of a return to baseline maintenance. Would that be more of an accurate assessment? Like what's actually, when we say upgrade,
So
that's something
in
going
the,
kind of above and beyond the standard. Like, can we just
So-
like delineate that?
Charles, the parks currently are deficient in the aesthetic standard that they're at. So this is spending the money up front to bring them to the standard that they should be, and then continuing to maintain after, which we would expect. You'll still see some plant replacement here and there, but you're not gonna see full revamps every single year.
the reserve line this is being pulled from is the landscape improvements and partial replacements, including resodding.
So I guess my concern is calling it an upgrade. Like, I don't know, like upgrade, that seems to be like a,
It's making it better than it is right now.
I would say it's park
well,
repair,
no,
not park.
no.
Park renovation.
I think
It's the word repair.
this is the way that I look at it. I think that we have, I'm gonna use Brian's line again. We have a lot of wrong plant, wrong place right now, where we have sod underneath a tree that's never gonna grow. And so we're not gonna replace like for like. We're gonna have to renovate it, enhance it. It's essentially changing it, is what we have to do.
It's a renovation.
To update it to be more in line with, you know, what the park actually is.
But to Charles's concern, it's not that we're putting in brand new pavers or new gazebos and all kinds of stuff. We're just replacing trees
Yeah,
that fix their
Yeah.
sod and things like that.
I mean, I'm a communications and marketing guy, and when you say upgrade, it's like, well, this is, so I mean, words have meaning, and I just think for the residents that are seeing and valid, valid comments that we're not really maintaining, I just worry about the word upgrade. That's what gives me a little bit of concern, and maybe I'm totally off, but I'm not thrilled about.
Is
how
the
we-
word improvement? Okay, that's the line that
There
it
you
is.
go, Jacob.
That's what
Perfect.
this is in the
What a good
reserves as well.
wordsmith.
Okay, we can make sure that our communications and verbiage moving forward is
And
landscape
Charles, I think you're
improvements
overthinking.
and replacements on all of
Make me
this.
happy.
is-
Thank you. Thank you.
So Jacob, good question. I'm not that great at math, but I added all this stuff together quickly and it's $630,000.
It's with the last, well,
See, that's 2025 and beyond at the end there.
did you
See, that's
add,
like Bed Bath and
Did you add
Beyond,
this?
whatever. There's
You
a
have the
beyond.
one,
did you add the 2024 numbers? That's almost 200,000.
Oh, I did.
Yeah,
So we
take
don't
that out.
do
That's
that.
for 24.
And it does get heavy at the end. The math you can see, we try to stay around that $60,000 a quarter. Just, but
Last was 277.
yep, the last one's
Now-
bigger.
Since you said there was 200,000 in reserves,
Yeah, that becomes easier to swallow.
the remainder, would that be out of capital and that's,
you can pull it from reserve still.
oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's.
Just because
the existing amenity.
Yeah, just because the full amount isn't there that you need to spend, doesn't mean you can't spend it out of reserves. You're basically pulling it from a different line item in there, like, for example, and these are small items, but the ice machines, they were supposed to be replaced
Yeah.
3-4 years ago, but we haven't because they lasted not so much, except for a couple of them. So, but we're replacing them this year. So you had that savings that could have been used to spend on other things than those years.
That's why sometimes we try to, if it doesn't, sometimes things are up for renewal in the expenditures on the reserve study, that we aren't going to just do the renewal if we don't need to. If we can push it a little longer.
And that gives us
pushing
something
helps.
extra money.
these lines.
Over and over again, it gives us extra money for things
Yeah.
like they go over.
Mhm.
Uh,
You do
so
have a comment by,
I'd like to.
by Brian?
Yeah,
Yeah, it adds up to quite a lot, and there's even more than that, because like Lakeside's not on there, North Village. We're able to transplant some plants to those areas to minimize that, so we don't have an answer on those yet. I'd love for you to wave the magic wand and say all approved, right? But if you have $200,000 this year, I think they're showing the Celebration residents that we are working on it. We're talking about more than a decade of neglect in some instances in some of these parks. So if you have $200,000 to fix these this year, and you turn around and you say, oh, we've got 200,000 next year too. We're not revisiting these parks for this 200,000. So we move on to the ones that are left over. Where it says on the line, it doesn't have it on there, but to revisit.
It's on there.
Okay, it's on there. To revisit the parks, each quarter, we want to revisit these parks and make sure we're not allowing these gaps to expand to what they are now. I mean, before we did the pollinator garden in Deer Woods, the park was empty. It was pine straw. It was way too far gone, way too far. So if we can stick with that, and then 2025 or 2026 rolls around and here's $10,000 every quarter, we're going back to these 20-30 parks we fixed in 2024, that would expand to maybe 20,000 during 2026, and we're fixing more parks. By the time 2027, 2028 rolls around, your $200,000 a year for landscape, Charles's landscape upgrades, you can now use for landscape upgrades to put a gazebo in, to put favors in, because we're not filling in gaps anymore. So if this takes a couple of years, hang on.
We're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I wanted to come up with a more holistic plan. Instead of just trying to dump a ton of money into our parks right now, more money than we have budgeted to do. Provide something that we can communicate outward and is almost, a master plan for our parks, which is saying we are dedicated to spend roughly $1,000 a year, but we're doing this every year. If your park's not getting done right now or in 9 months, that could be assessed to be one of the first parks next year or, the year after.
And I think it's clear, I know this seems silly that we need to communicate this, but if your park's not listed here, that doesn't mean that your park's not getting maintenance.
Correct.
Right, it's just not getting
Grass is
improved.
still getting mowed, bushes are still getting trimmed. That stuff's still going to happen.
That's why we need a word of.
And partial replacements are happening all the time as well.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's a good thing.
Yes.
Jacob, did you say it was budgeted a replacement, $200,000?
Next year, yes.
Is that consistent, 200,000, or is that?
It's consistent at 200,000 with a 4% increase year after year, which on a number like that can jump up to 235 and 2020.
Looking into next year, I would think it's appropriate that Q1, Q2, Q3 is 160,000. That's clearly covered. The 40,000 may need to be earmarked for spent on minor enhancements for parks that we already have to take care of that are existing that aren't on here that are new problems we're unaware of today. But if we do have that access toward the end of the year, then there may be another project for Q4 that may be possible.
And keep in mind, very minor, like we just spent, less than 5,000 fixed 8 parks, passive parks up to a point that got them to a much more acceptable level. So that type of project is ongoing.
Yeah.
I don't want us to look at it as overcommitting of, $300,000 when we budgeted from 200, trying to steal 100,000 from 2026, not knowing what we would need to continue to maintain it. So, just looking at it.
I think that's why the kind of flexibility here, 2025 and beyond.
Mhm.
And some of the things that we're improving are going to fix some of the maintenance challenges that we have today. Which I think is.
All right, so we're gonna put this on the agenda as here's a rough schedule. If we can move ahead, we move ahead.
Here's our action plan.
Okay.
The
What's
next item will read what? That we approve the balance or we approve?
No, it's just
The schedule.
We might, yeah.
I mean, you don't necessarily even need it as an action item.
Okay.
We can,
Realistically, we should, most likely what I'd like to do is I'm going to work with Brian and pick a couple of those that we want to look at in January and possibly the beginning of February and put those exact project numbers on as an action item.
So we've already had the discussion for them, so then those specific projects can come on the agenda once they're.
Correct.
Yeah,
I think
that makes
the
sense.
direction would be that we expect to see the first quarter between January and March. What order they come in, we'll leave that up to management and Brian to work out. Because we can't approve it in January and then prices go up on Brian, so that he's submitting a price bid or something in the future. So it will have to be time.
Our prices are tied, most of those prices are tied into the contract that we currently have with
So
him.
that's not gonna adjust.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so then finalizing the schedule with Brian and when it's gonna come due, so then.
Yeah.
It's timely for us to approve it.
Even if his prices flux, ours stay the same.
Great.
All right, we have an eighth action item, or an eighth discussion item that came from Charles, which is service area / town hall. Charles, is this yours?
Sure. Yeah, that's mine. I want to apologize. I've interrupted a few people. I'm not great with the virtual, not reading the room, so I want to just apologize for that. I promise I'll get a little bit better with that. So I raised my hand to be service area liaison. I knew what it was going to be. I knew there was a lot going on, and Celia obviously did a lot of work. So I've been out. What's that?
Slapping.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
you were volunteering.
Yeah.
it's fine. So it's
Drunk
actually
at the
been
time.
it's been a blessing in disguise, I think, because I've been able to go out, and Jacob's been out visiting a few places. We were over at Parkview, we were over at Academy Road. They've got some pain points around painting, and I've heard from them and a few other service areas. I think there are some real opportunities to get everyone together in really a town hall style format and just kind of talk through kind of a state of the union with what's going on in the service area world. What are they seeing? What can be improved? What's going well? Because I don't want it to be just like, hey, everything is bad and doom and gloom. There may be some areas that are going well, but I feel like service areas are really just an area that don't get a lot of attention, at least from what I'm seeing. And I think it's certainly an area that would be great to kind of bring everyone out and talk and get Rose there and get feedback real time. So I guess if the board would be okay with it, and I don't know if it needs to go to a formal vote, I would just look to get something scheduled so we can put it out to the community and get everyone out there. And
Communication is good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it makes sense seeing, and I chuckled, Charles, because I mean.
No, he didn't just chuckle, he
I
guffawed.
did laugh, because
Hilarious.
there's a lot of stuff that's going on. To be honest, we have a lot of service areas and there's a lot of work that constantly goes on with that. We also have a lot of service areas that are just aging, same as the rest of the community. So they're experiencing a lot of the same challenges as we are. I think to me, the town hall piece comes of it where it needs to be kind of a half and half situation where it's a presentation on reminding people what their service area is and what the different ones are, and kind of a Q&A. I also think it's important for it not just to be limited to service area members. I think anyone from the community that wants to attend to learn about what the service areas are, go for it. Because I know we get questions sometimes on, well, why, does Spring Lake get their landscaping taken care of and I don't in a single family home somewhere else? Well, it's because they're in a service area. So I think it's good. And I think that trying to push for something in Q1 of 25 would be appropriate.
I think it's a good idea because Jacob and I and Rose have been talking about some
think that's
changes in process for them. Utilizing Syrinet a little bit more. We even engaged with our DCAM to train Rose and Delise on using some reporting in Syrinet because the service areas, and no offense to the service areas, they're a little more cookie cutter from an HOA perspective than CROA is as the master. So Syrinet works for utilizing it for them a little bit more, and it'll give them a lot more information at their fingertips versus asking Rose and Delise for information a lot.
Mhm.
So it should help with some of those pain points that they're experiencing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I guess.
That's great. I think too.
Go ahead, Charles.
Sorry, and Eric, that's all spot on, and I think your view as secretary, because I know you're answering all the emails. Haha. I think you're obviously seeing a lot of that too, so that could definitely feed into some of the Q&A. And two, I think we can notice it as a board meeting so everyone can attend and listen in, because this goes beyond service areas. There's certainly synergies between technology and some of the other areas too. So just food for thought. Sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add, I know you're calling it a town hall, but does this almost need to become an annual meeting, right? Where you look at, say, the meetings in February and you go through all the service areas, management can put the presentation as far as what work they did through the year, maybe a little bit about the expenses that were incurred and things of that nature. If there were overages on projects or change orders, things of that nature, that could be explained, things like that. And then open up to some Q&A after for anyone who attends, and make that more of a commonality of at least an annual look back of what happened previous year.
I think it's a good idea. Let's see how many tomatoes are thrown at this as we
Yeah,
pilot
let's see
it.
how the first one goes.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. So
But I think you have consensus of the board that this is a good idea.
okay, so I guess Lauren, would that be, because I do think the deck is a good idea in a presentation. Is that something Lauren, Rose?
Yeah,
and you and I-
Jacob and Rose and I will talk about it, schedule, and then Jacob and Rose can work on the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Motion to adjourn?
I need guidance on what to do with this FAQ sheet.
Oh, guidance. Okay, we don't have it on the agenda.
We don't have it on the agenda, so I don't know, but I need guidance.
Okay.
So we have the FAQ sheet, we have, and this is specific to clarifying questions on regards to the recount for the ballots. We have the formal response back from existing legal counsel on it that we could include if we want. And then the FAQ, which are mainly, I don't want to say are innocuous, but they're relatively general questions on what it is. But I know that we were trying to figure out, is this something that we need either our current legal counsel to review, or if we wanted to have an outside legal counsel review like someone else. But we kind of need, the community's waiting on the FAQ sheet. So we kind of need to figure out.
I think the questions really come down to why did we do it? And that we have the answer. Because the result ended up exactly the same. So I think that just more, as you said, more innocuous, generic. I don't see that we need to make this more complicated.
I think everything
It's done.
that was in there, and Lauren looked at it too, has been public.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just putting.
It's just putting it all together in one thing. And so I think you and Lauren
Yeah,
know what to say. I don't think we need to hire another lawyer.
She answered the one question that we didn't know the answer to,
Right.
just from the public, information that we were able to get, that like residents could look up on their own as well.
yeah, that makes sense.
So I think get with Lauren, because she had some good responses to some of your questions.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it really, at this point, we just need to explain why we did it, what the process was. We went into exec session because there was the question of potential litigation and legal. Then we decided in executive session to make this a public notification, to open the executive session up. But by law, we basically had to go in executive session if there was the potential of litigation.
Right.
And that's all.
So then is it just that Lauren and management signs off on the FAQs and that we're good?
I think so.
You okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Do you want it out as, I would suggest it as a separate post instead of including it in like a Monday Matters or a Friday Flash, and maybe putting it on that ballot count webpage as well? And
Yeah,
pointing
that
people
makes
to that.
So,
I was gonna suggest to you too, I know it's additional work, but the couple residents that did email.
well, I'm gonna go
If you
back.
just email
So
them
anyone that
to them,
emailed
yeah.
individually, I'm gonna go back to them individually.
And send them the FAQ
FAQ
individually.
individually.
Yeah, that makes great sense.
And then also,
Yeah, and then put it out to the public generally.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
whatever, yeah.
It seems like a very good plan.
Gary,
Gary,
One, I wouldn't speculate about how this carries forward until you get that one-page memorandum from your current legal about future elections. Just stay away from there.
Sure.
oh, yeah, no. Yeah.
I completely agree. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, I'll tighten that up and
One question,
oh, sorry.
one more question, kind of unrelated. Do we have any update on the pool heater situation?
I can give you an update on the pool heater. So the pool heater at Spring Lake, which is not the one or Spring Park, which isn't the one you're asking
Correct.
about. That one is out of commission and we're looking at getting bids for replacement on it now. Unfortunately, all the timelines on any things are months out. The pool heater that you're asking about here at Lakeside, it's a 2-heater system. One, the compressor has completely failed. And so the other one is running, but one heater in this weather runs at 76 degrees, which is still very, very cold. It's refreshing. We did have all of our maintenance staff and with the Parks and Rec staff trained today on the solar cover and starting to try to use the solar cover more. That will start, we will be seeing more delays in the morning because that requires multiple people to install and remove. So it means the early swimmers will see no access until 7:30. I think the ruling this area is like 10 a.m. We're going to try to get it done right when the staff gets in at 7. So they're on 7:30. That will help.
So here's my.
The quickest thing that we could do is replace the compressor in this system. This system, there's only one brand and one company and one thing.
Right.
That's what we're not loving, and we're looking at other options with the other one. If we do, the parts, I think, are 8 to 10 weeks out right now. That's what.
Well, and that was gonna be my second question, was about Spring Park, because as it stands right now, we can't use Lakeside. And so we're supposed to move to Spring Park when Lakeside's down for renovation. So I'm potentially looking at 2 months of not having pool time for my swim team. And that puts a huge financial strain on our team. And, so I just, that might be a separate conversation that I need to have, but I need a better answer than that, because I'm gonna have to go look for pool space elsewhere.
I understand. Yeah. Right now, and
that's very expensive as well, so. And as far as like, we have a partner program contracts. So then kind of going back to what you asked about the 20% versus the month. So, then where do we stand with that when you guys aren't able to provide the amenity outlined in the contracts?
Yep.
That'll be something that will have to be evaluated.
Yeah, you would.
Absolutely will have to be evaluated if we can't provide the service that is in the contract.
I have one question. So I know you said that you're looking at different alternatives for Spring Park heating, and is that also happening for Lakeside? And is it just like you're looking at all of it right now for both?
Yeah, we're really looking, because of that in this, we're looking at it as well, as we know this is the issue we're having here with Symbiote and the lengthy repair times every time they break right when the first cold snap is nothing new with Symbiote equipment. And it always looks bad and it's always at the worst time. So that is something that to be looked at. But if we do, it will mean a longer downtime than a repair on this pool.
I'm not a big pool person, but I've always wondered this. Why don't we use any solar?
Solar covers?
Hot water.
Is it geothermal? Isn't it geothermal? And one is geothermal.
No,
One is gas.
like true solar hot water.
Well, the pool, it's not an often, so that's not a real option on the market. The only option for solar is.
There's no solar hot water?
I mean, you can make solar power to power.
No. There are solar panels through which water goes.
Oh,
we looked at this when we
There's
did the geothermal system back in the day, and what it came down to was we did not have the square footage of roof space for the collector.
Some people are putting collectors up now as parking lot.
Yes.
Shade structures.
How about we will look at all the options
We can look at
for.
that.
Yeah, look at that, because
I forgot that's what you.
yeah, it's literally just hot water pumped through big black plastic
So
Yes.
analysis
or
will be
hoses.
installation cost, maintenance cost, and the ability to get parts and the speed with which things can be repaired, replaced.
There's no electrical cost except for the pump. So-
Well, and at some point, kind of like the situation we're in, I know we keep fixing the parts, and I know repairing the whole thing, like replacing the whole system would be costly. But we're also spending all this money to resurface these pools and to upgrade the facilities. So why would we have faulty heating systems? That just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, that's what we're looking at.
That's with this one right now, that's That's right where we're at, is the, like, do we look at repairing a system that is continuously failing? Or do we look?
And it makes it easier for me to answer questions, because it kind of, I try to take it off of you guys and off of Grand Manners as much as I can, where I can talk to my families and send emails about to the team and the swim community, you know?
But still, no pool is no pool,
But
right?
no
At the
pool
end
is
of the
no
day.
pool, and
Mhm.
we have, and especially the hospital pool's been down too.
Yes, they're repairing.
So the hospital, pool, so literally, in all of Celebration, the only heated pool right now is ours.
So do we need to do anything, like, as far as like, to be able to like, say, to get some bids on?
Christian's already working.
We're working on that now.
Yes, that's already being taken care of.
Symbiot's not even returning calls on providing a bid for the system that we have in place right now. So, and that's inactive. I've asked him to start tracking all of that.
Can
And
you
to
be
work-
updated, like, weekly in the management report specifically on like where you're at with the pool
We
heaters?
can do that.
Okay.
Both pool heaters.
Yeah.
We'll Put that in the weekly report for you.
What's the current useful
And if
life
you need,
heaters?
Yeah, what's the
They're-
reserve?
They're ready to be replaced.
Is it, are they ready for a reserve replacement?
Yes.
Mhm.
So we
why-
really should be looking at a new system.
Symbian sucks, get rid of them, find replacements, get it in front so we can.
But they're talking about right now getting
Because
them.
it's switching from,
Water.
right now, they're both geothermal systems.
Yeah,
There's only one geothermal system maker, and that's Symbiot. So if we're looking at alternatives, we're switching the systems. So we're looking at those options. Yeah.
If they're incompetent in maintaining their systems, then they need to look elsewhere.
That's where
Christian's
we're looking at
working
right
to
now.
get bids on various options.
Thanks.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you all so much.
thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.